Well, happy hump day, everybody. Hope your week is going well at work, with your family, as well as your daily time with God. In our Bible reading plan, we are in Genesis chapter 18 today. And I hope you've already read the chapter and written in your journal what God said to you. As you probably know by now, I've started the habit of writing a headline at the top of what I write in the journal, my journal, for what God said to me. And the headline that to describe what God spoke to me in Genesis 18 is God hears, sees, and knows, dot, dot, dot. In other words, God hears, sees, and knows absolutely everything. And what got me thinking about that is in chapter 18, when, and by the way, if you're wondering what those blue tabs are, I'm working on a future sermon, and when I'm reading that chapter over and over and ideas come, I just write them on a little sticky note and stick it in that chapter so I'll remember. Anyway, that's just whatever that is. But in chapter 18, in verses 20 and 21, when the Lord and angels visit with Abraham, and after they eat and talk and so on, the Lord and Abraham, the Lord and the angels are making their way toward Sodom, or the angels go on, and Abraham and the Lord are talking. This was if you think of it as a pre-incarnate appearance of Jesus. Jesus took upon himself humanity at Bethlehem. That's what we celebrate at Christmas, the incarnation of Christ. But this is prior to that. There were times in the Old Testament when the Lord would appear in human form to speak to Abraham and to others, and that's what's going on here. And in verse 20, the Lord said to Abraham, notice this, chapter 18, verse 20, the Lord said to Abraham, the outcry of Sodom and Gomorrah is indeed great, and their sin is exceedingly grave. And I'm going to go down now and see if they have done entirely according to its outcry, which has come to me. It's as though God in heaven was hearing the sin of all the people in Sodom and Gomorrah. The cry of their sin was rising. All the things they were saying, all the noise that was taking place because of their sin was rising up to heaven, and God was hearing all of it. And it reminded me in Exodus, which we will also read in our Bible reading plan this year. In chapter 3, when God appears to Moses at the burning bush, and in chapter 3, verses 7 and 9, in chapter 7 of Exodus 3, verse 7 of chapter 3 of Exodus, the Lord said to Moses, I have surely seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt. Remember, they have been slaves in Egypt for 400 years, the Jewish people. And I have given heed to their cry because of their taskmasters, for I am aware of their sufferings. And then in verse 9, now behold, the cry of the sons of Israel has come up to me, and furthermore, I have seen the oppression with which the Egyptians are oppressing them. And what struck me was how the cry of God's people suffering bondage in Egypt rose up to heaven. But in Genesis 18, the noise, the cry of the sins of the people in Sodom and Gomorrah also rose up to heaven, and God heard it. Wow. So the cries of suffering and the noise of sin all ascend to heaven, and God hears all of it. And he tells Abraham that he's going to destroy Sodom. And then he and Abraham and the Lord have this back and forth conversation where the Lord says, where Abraham is bold and says, God, if you find 50 righteous people, will you still destroy Sodom? And God says, no, if there's 50 righteous, I won't. Then 45. No, if I find 45 righteous, I won't. If I find 40, I won't destroy Sodom. If there are 30 righteous people, won't destroy. Abraham said, what if there's 20? No, I won't destroy Sodom if there's 20. And then Abraham finally says, well, what if there's only 10? If there's 10 righteous people, will you spare Sodom? And God says, yes. So 6 times Abraham asked the Lord, if you find this many righteous people in Sodom, will you spare them? So you're saying, all right, Steve, what does that have to do with anything? It's how God hears. God heard the noise of Sodom's sin. He heard the cry of people suffering in Egypt, and he heard the pleas of Abraham. God hears us when we plead on behalf of lost people. God hears us when we plead on behalf of sinners, if you will. In other words, God's always listening. He hears everything, sees everything, knows everything. Nothing is hidden from God. He hears the cries of the suffering. He hears the noise of the sinners, and He hears the pleads of His people for those who are lost and struggling in sin. God always hears. Nothing can be hidden from God. And so He hears, He sees, and He knows. And a one-sentence prayer I wrote in my journal as a response to all of that is this: may God hear only good things from my lips and from my life. May God hear only good things from my lips and from my life. And I pray that God hears good from you as well. God bless you, and I'll see you tomorrow.